Elliot Justin, welcome to Listening with Leaders. You are a really interesting guy, a medical doctor, emergency medical doctor by profession, but you are also the CEO and founder of a company called FirmTech, which can be found at myfirmtech.com. And what I think is so fascinating is that you developed a device that measures men's sexual activity. I guess we'll learn more about that if we talk, but why don't we start off and just tell us a little bit about your backstory?
How far back shall I go? I guess
a Reader's Digest version of, I mean, you're 70, I'm 73. We've been around for a long time. Give me the Reader's Digest version. You're from the East Coast. You're living in Montana. So how did all this occur?
Well, I was blessed with in terms of my intellectual development, my mental development, and my emotional development. Right? Having parents who are different sides of the political spectrum. So the chasm is rather wide today, but it was pretty wide in the 1960s. My father was career Army, and originally my mother was a red diaper baby. My father was what's good for business is good for America, and my mother was interested in redistributing wealth. My father's message to me was, don't be envious, go out and get your own. And my mother felt everything, things needed to be leveled, and people just to start at the same point. And the war in Vietnam, I mean, I don't think they made love after the war in Vietnam. It's during or after. Wow. drove them deeply apart. On the other hand, both my parents were readers and argued continually. So for better or for worse, I got to see that whereas my mother was more articulate, won most of the fights, historically, she was wrong about most of the things that she predicted would happen. And then in the late 1970s, she switched, and just kind of, and it takes a long time for people to change if they're wrong, and to hold themselves accountable. In 1969, I hitchhiked out west, disappeared, because that was something to do at that time. It was a lot of fun. And always felt after that trip, where I spent about 4 months hitchhiking out west, that, as I said to you earlier, the West is best and the East is least. I always wanted to live out west and live closer to nature. I always felt that my father, to some degree, was my hero. He was a forward artillery observer in World War II. He won Silver Star, Bronze Star, and I felt that I kind of grew up in the shadow of his heroism, and that I had a pivotal. I had a pivotal event in 1972. I went to Harvard, and my father came up to visit me the middle of sophomore year, and said he lost his job. He was a salesman, and that this is going to be the last year of college he's going to pay for, and I would have to pay for things going forward. And he then proceeded to lay out to me what, from his perspective, were the choices in life. I said, well, you could become a lawyer. I know, Doug, you're a lawyer. He said, you could become a lawyer, but then you kind of got to suck up to the people who you want, the firm you want to become partners. You got to become part of the social senior community. You got to worry about the judges. You're not going to like it. So you could go into government the way your mother wants you to go to the State Department, but then you're kind of a parasite. You could become a teacher. I was majoring in Slavic language and literature. So, but eventually you'll get tired of sleeping with undergraduates, and you'll probably end up in some place like Kansas. You could become a businessman, but you see, my father had made money and lost money twice in my life. So I'd experienced being upper middle class and being lower middle class a couple of times. And business is risky. You could. I was, that time I thought was to become a spy. So you could join the CIA, but you're not going to like it. And I did later on take the test of the CIA. I did, and went down to Langley and didn't like the people. So you could join the Army, but you can't follow orders. You might want to consider becoming a doctor, because that way you'll have a profession you could take anywhere, and you'll always have the self-respect that comes from helping people. I can't say that was pivotal. My motivation going to medical school was more, well, I liked school. Was really easy for me. And what's the longest postgraduate program there is? Longer than being a lawyer or an accountant? It's
medicine, right?
It's medicine. And that was a big part of motivation. And then, but I have to say, medicine made a man of me. It made me take seriously my obligations to other people. And it was, and I enjoyed it. It did take some growing up because I had to go from rather, there's a Russian character named Oblomov. He's a really, novel written by Goncharoff. And so Oblomov is a character who is talented, but spends his life on the sofa because he has enough money just to, he has a maid, and he has a maid who he sleeps with, and people come to him and say, well, you need to get up, you need to do something. Like I had Oblomovian tendencies because school was really easy for me. Anyway, I went to emergency medicine partially because it was probably as close to a combat as I imagined things could be. It was a relatively new specialty, and I think I probably took care of 175,000 people in the course of my medical career.
Wow.
And had the satisfaction that came with that. I would say 99.5% of people who come to the emergency department, you can make them better. You can solve their problem in about an hour and a half. And medicine trained me to think algorithmically and with differential diagnosis. So here's a problem. What are the range of possibilities? What's the most economic way of approaching a solution? And that type of dialectic thinking I live it. I have my opinions. I have my, we all have our go-tos. This is what I think, but I always try to run in my mind, what's the other possibility? For every thesis, there's an antithesis, and you need to try to run both those things before you come to a conclusion. Anyway, emergency medicine turned out to be not that interesting after a couple of years, or at least not that interesting in the sense that there are about 15 problems that occur 85 to 90% of the time. And the challenge then is most doctors don't master this, unfortunately, but the challenge is to come up with an algorithmic approach to those problems. So it's like being a chef. I would actually compare what I was doing to being a chef in a restaurant. Here are 35 things I need to know how to cook. And so in medicine, it's like, here are these problems. I know how to cook them. So I early on became, I wanted to go into a leadership position. I want to run departments. I want to run them efficiently. And initially, my focus in medicine was on how do you maintain quality while being efficient. I became very interested in pre-hospital healthcare and paramedicine, and in taking skills that were at the doctor level or the paramedic level and delivering them to EMTs, because EMTs are the people who are initial providers in healthcare. So I always want to run a really progressive department. So we had the first department in the United States to train EMTs to do defibrillation. It's everywhere now. These automatic defibrillators are everywhere. But at that time, it was revolutionary. I was the first people in the world in the United States to train paramedics and EMTs too, to use something called a laryngeal mask airway, because the most difficult skill as an emergency doctor is to intubate someone who's had respiratory distress or respiratory arrest. And this is a device that I could train you, Doug, anyone to do this in about 3 minutes. This LMA, and that was so when I did research in that area. So but how did I get into what I'm currently doing? It kind of relates to emergency medicine because well, here's the backstory for that. I've always been really interested in sex. So the first day of medical school, I learned 2 important lessons. And I think every man is going to relate to one of them. There's always some girl in college who you're too intimidated to pick up or speak to because she's just so beautiful. And you just kind of get tongue-tied around her. And there was a girl at Radcliffe, that doesn't exist anymore, it's not part of Harvard, who I felt that way about. She also majored in Slavic language and literature. I didn't know that she'd also had qualified for medical school like me. And I was really scared of her. And then lo and behold, I'm in Cambridge. I'm taking the trolley over to Boston University School of Medicine. She's there and she's going to the same medical school that I am. Well, I'd matured somewhat over the years of college and had the nerve now to talk to her. I sat down next to her. And by the time we got the bridge over the Charles River, I was utterly bored. it was such a, and by the time I got to medical school, I wanted to know nothing to do with this person. So it's one of those profound lessons for guys like, oh, beauty is not necessarily the most important thing. And a lot of these people are really boring. You don't have anything to do with them. So I got to medical school and looked around and felt, these are not my people. So I went off to the medical school library, because going to the library is always part of my habits. Now, what was I interested in? Well, I'm 22 years old, aphrodisiacs. So there's something then called the Index Medicus. Today it's all online, but Index Medicus was a yearly compendium, came in a book form like this, of medical articles. I looked up aphrodisiacs, and there was stuff in there. Yohimbe, a bunch of other types of thing people talk about today, orals and topicals, and I tried most of them. None of them worked. Anyway, skipping ahead years. In 2015, I started a company called Pegasus Emergency Group. We were very successful. I exited that company, and I was riding a horse recklessly and hit a tree and broke 6 ribs and 6 vertebrae. And as I was lying on the ground, this is important for your listeners to pay attention to this, because any man who skis the way you do, or rides motorcycles, or does anything that's at high risk, what's the worst thing that happened to you? You break your spinal cord, you end up being a paraplegic or a quadriplegic. Got knocked off off the horse. I quickly assessed that I'm not gonna die, but I'm in a lot of pain. I have a lot of broken bones. The cock-up sign. I've been trying to teach this since 1982. If you think your spinal cord is injured, but you can cock up your big toe, you can urinate, defecate, and fornicate, the big 3.
You're okay.
You're okay, exactly. My wife came over, she was there, and says, are you going to die? I said, no, but I'm going to be in a lot of pain. Everything's going to go okay. Anyway, that got me interested. I just sold the company, I had money. I was interested in rehabilitation of men with spinal cord injury. And the most promising technique was neuromodulation. Most people know about neuromodulation because you know about cardiac pacemaking. It's basically implanting a nerve in the heart, and with it, you have a battery, essentially have a generator pack, and you send various amplitudes and frequencies of electricity, and you can control the heart. And there were papers by doctors saying that they had done this with men with spinal cord injuries and multiple sclerosis. First, I tested it out on 2 rams, male sheep. I called it ram charging. And we got urination, defecation. We also got erection and ejaculation, but it wasn't exactly bedroom friendly. And maybe in some small communities in San Francisco or London or Provincetown, it might be, but not bedroom friendly. Now, the usual thing would have been to go to Silicon Valley and raise $15, $20 million and conduct experiments on more than 2 rams, and then take this down to, this is the way the game works, Mexico, Colombia, or Brazil, and conduct an under the radar experiment on people who you're paying to be experimented on, basically. And I felt no. I tried it on me. It didn't work. But a few years later, a urologist at the University of Utah heard about what I was doing and said, "Gee, you're now in medical technology. I have an idea, and I want to count the number of nocturnal erections that men have, because they're a leading indicator of men's cardiovascular health." Well, leading indicators are a really powerful thing to say in medicine. It's not an association. It means it's predictive. Now, I had no idea that if a man goes from 5 nocturnal erections per night down to 2, that man will have a heart attack or a stroke in a few years. So this becomes like a 6th vital sign.
This is not age related.
It's not it. Well, well, that's really interesting.
I know in my blood work, I have like this tiny little bit of testosterone.
Well, it is age. If your testosterone is low, it is age related, because testosterone goes down with age, and that's a reason actually to take testosterone. So, I believe, I'm confident, I would say, that 3 years from now, what we're doing now with FirmTech, we call it an erectile fitness score, will become the standard for care and for research for all men over the age of 45, and for younger men who are diabetic or hypertensive or obese or have risk factors.
You've invented a device that fits over a penis
Correct.
and it sends data somewhere.
It's a wearable, so it's Bluetooth enabled. We have an app. If and I'm to objective, basically the phrase goes, if you can track it, you can hack it. Right now, if you and I, and we're the same age, if we went to a cardiologist and said, gee, I feel a little short of breath walking down the driveway, maybe I might get a little twinge of pain in my left arm, and the cardiologist just said, hey, Doug, you look good. Listen to the stethoscope and said, your ticker's okay, you're okay. We would think, WTF, is this 1880? We would expect a CT angiogram, electrocardiogram stress test, blood work. Well, that's where we are with urology or sexology when it comes to erectile dysfunction. The urologists and sexologists have pretty much nothing other than opinion, and those opinions are based upon subjective studies that use a subjective scoring system as opposed to an objective scoring system. So that's what we're doing is revolutionary. And since your sexual health is not just about your sexual health, it's a reflection of cardiovascular health and and also medication side effects. I mean, men our age, more than half the men our age are taking either antihypertensive or antidepressant. And about 35, 40% also are diabetic. All those things are erection killers, but they also are a reflection of our cardiovascular health. So I'll share with you that the device we're doing right now is like a flip phone. We're now working on the equivalent of a smartphone for the device, because we're going to be adding radar. Probably we're testing it right now, but with radar sensors, we can see through your pelvic bones and into the pelvic floor muscles and see how strong they are. We can look for calcifications in your arterioles and your venules in your pelvis. So what's going to happen with this device? We very long. We sold 11,000 devices. What happened with the next generation devices, a year and a quarter from now, it'll be like a painless catheterization, only through looking at your sexual health.
This is amazing. Yeah, I'm happy to say that I'm on no medication whatsoever.
That's good.
I'm really in good shape, but I work hard at it.
Well, and I'm certain you are in good shape, but we've had men get our device who are really fit, who did discover that they had
something wrong.
Something wrong. So it's the predict. I mean, it's the predict. So the point being that before a man manifests clinical erectile dysfunction, can't get it up, or either can't attain erection, that's really bad, or more commonly has trouble sustaining erection. The data shows problems. And so this becomes a screening test.
Wow. So we see a time in the future, in the not too distant future, where this becomes a commonplace device for men for getting diagnostic health in their whole pelvic region and their sex and
as a reflects their overall cardiovascular health.
Right.
So, and women too. And we've tested the device on 38 women, and I hope to bring that out in 2025. I don't have the money. This business is largely done with my money that I've made in other ventures.
Right.
And I will do the female device anyway in time, but I'd rather fund it from revenue than fund it from personal assets.
Yeah. And that's what you're doing. You're self-funding the whole project.
Yeah. I've self-funded almost every business that I've done. Matter of fact, I have self-funded every business. I've never worked with VCs. It's
the right way to go if you can do it.
Yeah.
So what is it that gets you up in the morning, gets you excited about everything that you do?
This is the most exciting thing I've ever done, because one is it's a legacy. I don't have to do this business. I could be knocking around a golf ball and skiing and just riding horses and reading books, but that's not who I am. I would need to be doing something, but this is we're delivering potentially life-changing, potentially life-saving data to people. And I would spend 3 to 4 days a week. I get emails from men of all ages with two themes. One is, I'm now having my wife and I. Well, the most common one is my wife and I are now having the sex of our lives. Thank you. And they could be men who are recovering from prostate cancer. They could be men who have who are taking too many medicines. I mean, you know, that people our age who are taking 3 medicines, and I make recommendations to them. I always tell them, of course, don't change your medications without, you know, consulting your doctor. But I know these people doing their own because people don't trust doctors.
Right.
And these. So if you're, you know, I'm the oldest person is 82 years old. His wife was 65. He was taking 5 medications that could have an impact upon his sexual performance. And I recommend him that they stop 3 of them. And he did. I don't know if we talked to his doctor or not, but he and his wife emailed me and said, well, they're really happy now. So to restore people's sexual function is to change the quality of their lives and to extend their lifespan. And people who are sexually active live longer.
What are urologists saying about this?
They love it. So, I mean, there's a Dr. John Noll. He's the head of andrology at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York. He heard about what we're doing. He asked to join our scientific advisory board. This is about 6 weeks ago. He wants to do a study using this device before and after prostate surgery, with the goal of, one, eliminating malpractice, because people claim that they're potent before and end up being intimate afterwards, but this device makes it objective. But more importantly, getting men to comply with the rehab from prostate surgery. You and I are probably blessed. I don't. My prostate's normal. Yours prostate's normal, but a lot of men have problems, and as a consequence, the incidence of impotence after surgery is between 30 and 70%. Well, that's game over for a lot of people. There's suicide, depression associated with it, and men. The therapy is demanding. Men have to do pelvic floor exercises. They have to use pumps. They take medications. And a lot of men quit because they don't see any benefits. But if people see data, they're more likely to comply. I mean, even myself, I've weighed the same thing forever, and I'm fit. My wife has a digital scale. I still get on it every day. I don't need to. It's the same thing every day. But there's that type of response, and people develop positive relationships with their wearables for health. And it's my hope that with this type of technology, people will enjoy better cardiovascular health, less medication side effects, and also the benefits of having a happier sex life.
Wow, that's quite a legacy.
Yeah, so it's fun. So what gets me up in the morning? It's that. Yeah. It's great to be in business with my wife. I've started other businesses. My wife's never been engaged. We've married, close to our 36th year. In the past, I'm certain her attitude would have been, no effing way I want business with my husband, because that you and I discussed before the call, I can be impatient. I can, I tend to work at a gallop. I'm always sort of triangulating in my mind and coming to decisions faster than other people. And I need to often, in my own defense, though, I do want to say something to prepare this conversation. I've always said, and I'm going to use a word that's fallen utterly out of fashion, but when I started running emergency departments, and I would invite everyone to our monthly quality meetings, everyone meaning people who clean the toilets, security, technicians, nurses, etc. And a lot of people, doctors didn't like that. People didn't like airing their problems, the cases they misdiagnosed in public. But my point to the team was, even the dumbest person here could come up with a better idea than me every day of the week. And if I'm not listening, if they're not here and we're not listening, we're not going to realize that one of the problems we have here is actually the toilets aren't being turned over faster, or the waiting room is not being cleaned up, or the parking situation is really bad. And also, I was always often impressed with how people lower down, people without college education, could come up with really practical solutions. So it is imperative to listen. But I would say probably in my marriage, there was always going to be problematic. But this business has been great. It's really been great working together. That gets me up as well too, because we're working together. And I guess the third thing would be, and you understand because you live in natural beauty, I love where I live. I didn't feel this way when I lived in New Jersey. I wanted to get out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I couldn't live in the city. Living in the mountains is really a blessing. It really is. Yeah, I tell people I live in the California that nobody hears about. And it's going to stay that way, I hope.
Yeah, I get up in the morning, I feed the chickens, I give carrots to my horses, feed them, and then, you know, it's not riding season, but it's always beautiful. And I try to see dawn every day.
Good for you.
And that's what I love about living out west. I want to live in a place where I can see the sunrise and the sunset. Probably like you, we've never, since we moved to Bozeman, we've never locked our doors.
No.
We don't even know where the keys to the house are. And Bozeman has changed because of California. You know,
You had a lot of people moving during the pandemic.
They call it Bose Angeles now. And it used to be when we moved here, and the city had like 28,000 people, has over 60,000 people right now.
Oh.
It used to be that you know, if you and I passed each other on Main Street and we didn't say hello, we think the other person was an asshole.
Right.
And that's changed. People actually don't like being spoken to in the street. People come here from Los Angeles or San Francisco or Seattle, that they're not used to that type of civility. I miss it. And I would actually move further out, but my wife loves our social life here and she makes her happy. So we'll stay. The town has come to us though.
Yeah. Yeah, I know how that is. Well, it's going to take a while for the town to grow out here, but we're 30 miles from town. So it's a good 35-minute drive in. But you're right. It's the lifestyle is unbelievable. Well, one more question. I've learned there's so many interesting things about you, Elliot. One question that I'm really curious about. What is one thing about yourself that we would never know about unless you revealed it to us?
Annie?
Yeah.
You mind if I have my wife join this?
Have her come on in.
Oh, yeah, this gentleman has a question. Come on.
I'm coming.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear.
He's asked me. Go ahead.
So, hi, Annie. I'm Doug.
Hi, Doug.
So I asked Elliot, it's always the last question I ask on my podcast. And the question is, so Elliot, what's one thing about yourself that we would never know about unless you revealed it to us?
God.
Go ahead.
I have no idea.
Okay. I'll reveal it. I think about sex a lot.
Obviously, it's your business.
And it's been something that, you know, that I think that people need to plan for pleasure. And so I guess people would probably know that about me. What would people know about me?
How kind you are. Because Elliot's got a lot of opinions and he, expresses them, vociferously, but, ultimately he's an emergency room doctor. You have to really be kind to do that work. He's open to anybody that comes in. So,
yeah, I think by my qualifications, people might think that I'm a snob, and I'm not. I do listen, and I am a caretaker of people, and that's
good for you. Well, if you were to ask me that question, I'd tell you I'm a jazz violinist.
Oh,
well,
wow, how fun is that?
Well, this has been a great conversation, Elliot. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thanks. It was fun.